Hi guys, my name is Angie. Welcome to my channel, and as you can see, we are talking about how to read more. Now, maybe I should have made this video like in January when people were setting their goals for the year, but I mean, you can set goals whenever you want. So if you decided, yesterday that you want to read more books this year, you could do that. So I think this video is relevant no matter what. Now, I'm sure the first thing you're thinking is, why does this girl think that she is an authority figure on this subject? What qualifications does she have? My qualifications are that my whole personality is reading books, and it is like basically my only hobby, and I read a lot of books. And not that this is a numbers game, because it is not. We'll talk about that later, but it is not a numbers game. But if you want some sort of quantifiable reason as to why I can be giving you this advice, I've read like hundreds of books in the last few years, and like through those hundreds of books, I've nailed down, I think, some pretty good advice that I can give to some people. I will say though, as I was thinking about this list, as I was making it and kind of just going through all my various thoughts, I do think that these tips would be better for someone who is, not new to reading, but hasn't read in many years, hasn't read since high school, or hasn't read like for leisure in however many years. But I will definitely try to include some tips or just like some extra little bonus things for people that are currently readers and are just kind of looking for a different perspective on like the act of reading, because we all read differently, and I think we can all get some advice on, how to read more or how to read better from other readers in this community. But yeah, I'm not going to mess around here. Let's go ahead and get into the list. I think I have a total of seven tips. I'd like to think that these are more unique, but you're going to see some overlap in these videos. Let's just be real. I hope that my tips are useful to you, and I hope that, you can read some more books with these tips. Tip number 1 is honestly probably my best tip on this list. You could probably stop watching this video as soon as I'm done talking about it, but I would really appreciate it if you stuck around. But yeah, I definitely think this first one is the most important. And that is to read books that you want to read. And I know you're thinking, yeah, duh. But you'd be surprised how easy it is to kind of get into this mentality of like, if I read this book, it's going to make me cooler, or like, if I read this book, I'm going to be so much smarter, or like, this cool person was reading this book and I'm really easily influenced by them and I want to be just like them, so I'm going to pick that book up. And there's honestly nothing wrong with wanting to pick up a book for any of those reasons, but there is a good chance that if you pick up that book and it's not something you actually like you're just picking it up because you think you should, you're not going to want to pick up another book after that, if that makes sense. Like if you pick up a classic and it is just so hard to get through, you're really, really struggling, it takes you like 2 months to read, you're not going to want to pick up another book right away because you're tired, honestly, because it wasn't a book that you were like really, really into. I'm just saying classics because I feel like that is a genre that people feel like they need to read. So many people enjoy classics and have so much fun with it. I'm not saying anything bad about the genre at all. And I'm also not saying that I've definitely never fallen prey to this. I know that I have. I think when I first kind of got back into reading a few years ago, I was reading a lot of books that I just saw other people reading. I was like, oh, I will be so cool if I read that book because I think that person is really cool. And if they're reading that book and then I read that book, I'll be just as cool as them. And while I'm not saying that wasn't true, because I do think I'm pretty cool, but I was reading significantly less then than I was when I like picked up a romance book that I really, really was into. My reading increased significantly when I started reading romance that I enjoyed. And I'm not saying that like, if you're not enjoying classics, you should pick up a romance. I'm saying pick up what you think you like, and that could be anything. And that honestly could be a classic. If you are reading like contemporary literary fiction and you're not vibing with it, maybe you do need to pick up a classic. There's a few different ways to kind of figure out what you do like. I would say the first thing to start with is read what you watch. So if you love horror movies, pick up a horror book. If you like the romance subplot in every movie or every story, like me, pick up a romance book. Or, if you like true crime, pick up a thriller. I really feel like if you like true crime podcasts, I think reading a thriller book would kind of, emulate the same feelings you get from listening to a podcast. Reading is such a personal experience. It's so subjective. That's honestly why I have trouble recommending books, because it is so personal. And what you like is so personal too. So that's why you need to figure out what you like. It doesn't matter what other people are reading. Of course, it is a great way to kind of figure out, what's popular, because I do think books are popular for a reason, but like see what's popular in a genre that you like. And I just want to add, because like I mentioned kind of at the beginning of my spiel about this whole tip, is a lot of people want to pick up books because they think that they will make them like smarter. And you might think like, well, like a romance book or a fantasy book or something is not going to make me smarter. That's not true, because you are reading from a different person's perspective. Someone who thinks completely differently from you is writing a story from their perspective with like their lived experiences. And you're always going to learn something new from a book, no matter the genre. I really, really, truly believe that. So yeah, tip number 1, read what you want to read. That is very, very important. Like I said, you could stop now, but I'm still going to continue. But a little side note to this, if you are in school and you have a certain book that you need to read for class, you do still have to read that, unfortunately. I'll give you a little tip a little bit later on, kind of on how it might be a little bit easier to get through some of those books. Okay, tip number 2 is to incorporate reading into your daily life. If you really do want to be a reader, you kind of have to walk the walk. You'd be surprised on how much time you spend throughout the day, either kind of like doing nothing or scrolling or watching TV, and you could easily replace all of those things, or some of those things. You don't have to replace all of them, but you could replace some of those things with reading. That might not be something that you think about if you are not already a huge reader, but when I was reading the most, I was like waking up early and reading. Like as soon as I woke up, I wasn't watching TV. And I was, listening to audiobooks on my drive to work. Like there's so many places where you can fit reading into your daily life. And you'd be surprised on how much you can read in a short amount of time. So say you watch 2 hours of TV every night, just cut it down to 1 hour and then watch TV for an hour and read for an hour. You're going to finish that book like in a week, depending on the length, of course. I mean, I'll talk about audiobooks later on. Audiobooks are so useful, so I feel like they're going to come up with every tip here, but I'll focus on them in a little bit. There's so many gaps in your day that you can honestly fill with reading. Like if you're waiting to go see the doctor, bring a book with you, or you can read on your phone. That is like way easier. You don't have to like carry around a book with you, especially if you don't have a Kindle. You can just read on your phone. There's so many places. I'm the worst. I really, really am the worst. So don't think I'm judging anyone when I say this, but I think we could all use a little less screen time in our life. Try to really actively work to swap your screen time with reading. And again, it isn't like an all or nothing kind of thing, but if you are currently like not reading anything right now, like I said, you will be surprised on how much you will end up reading when you just like dedicate honestly a very small amount of time of your day to reading. So I guess this one is kind of just like, if you want to be a reader, you have to kind of think like a reader. You have to act like a reader. You have to, just fill in reading at all different points in time. It makes you kind of mysterious too. You're like at lunch and you're the one reading your book. It makes you cool because reading is cool. So tip number 3 is another one that I think is really, really important. And that is to talk to other people about books. And this can be anyone at all. It could be your friends, of course, but even just random other people that you kind of interact with. It could be your coworker. That's a great place to find people that like books. It could be your dental hygienist. It could be just any random person. You'd be surprised by the people that you run into that are also readers. I will say, as someone who like is a reader and has been reading for a while, it's not like super common necessarily, but it does happen. Like there's definitely so many people that are reading, especially now, because reading is like it's a pretty popular thing to do right now. But definitely it's still not like every person you meet is a big reader. But it is just like so motivating to talk to other people about the books you read. It doesn't even matter if you guys don't read the same genre. And I think that it's so important because reading is an activity that you do by yourself for the most part. And you kind of just live with these thoughts in your head about these books, and you don't have anyone to relate to on them. So once you start like seeking out someone to talk to about books, you're going to just, I don't know, it's just so much more fun. It's hard to explain, but I think it's just the idea of building a community that is always going to feel so important. And there's so many ways to do this. I mentioned your friends, I mentioned your coworkers and random people, but also like I can guarantee that your local indie bookstore has a book club, that they have book events. A lot of indie bookstores have like signings and stuff like that. So that is a great way to surround yourself with readers because you can guarantee that they're all going to love to read. You can obviously join like a book club of people like not related to a bookstore. I would say that could be a little bit harder if it's not a group of people that you already know. I have had some failures like trying to like maintain or just be part of a book club of just like people that like, you know, that like live in my city. It was so much fun when it was happening though, but it is hard to maintain, honestly. I do think that the best case scenario for a book club is like a group of friends. So if that is like an option to you, that is really great. And then if you don't want to like interact with people like in real life, that is also perfectly fine because there are countless of Facebook reading groups and they're just all over the place. There are some for every genre imaginable. There's some for like every city, every little section of the city. Like for example, I live in Houston and I've seen some that are like Northwest Houston readers. Like it can get very specific. And also what's great about the Facebook groups is that like as soon as you join one, it is so easy to join more. It's just they get recommended to you and it's just joining them for the most part is like a click of the button. You know, they usually want you to answer some more questions, but it takes like 2 seconds. And I think that the best way to kind of get into Facebook groups is to find an author that you really love, or if you already have an author that you really love, I can promise you that they have a Facebook group, and that is a great place to start because you know that everyone that is in that group already loves that author. You already have that in common with them. And then as soon as you do that, you can kind of maybe see like what groups other people are part of, or like I said, you'll get recommended other reader groups. So yeah, I really think that is important just because, I mean, it's always important to form a community of some kind. And I think that the book community is one that is very vast and large and just all encompassing. Like I said, there's so many different genres that you can find in all these various groups, and everyone reads so many different things. Yeah, definitely if you can find someone to talk to about books, it makes the act of reading so enjoyable, and that is going to make you want to read more books. Number 4, I promised we would talk about audiobooks, and that is what we are doing now. So the 4th tip is to listen to more audiobooks. Now I know that audiobooks are not for everyone, and I completely respect that. I will say if you've never listened to an audiobook before, give it a try. It is such a great way to consume books because we are all busy people. We all have things to do. We all have chores to do. We all have places to go. And you'd be surprised on the different times and places you can listen to an audiobook. My favorite thing, or my favorite time to listen to an audiobook, is when I'm folding laundry. It's the best. Folding laundry is like not a fun thing. No one likes it. I don't know a single person that likes it. Well, I'm sure there's someone, but you know, it's not my favorite chore to do, but as soon as I'm like listening to an audiobook while I'm doing it, it is so much more fun because I am reading while I'm doing my chores. And again, I mentioned before that I would like listen to an audiobook on my way to work. Also fantastic. You can also listen to audiobooks when you're doing something fun too. Like if you're doing crafts, if you are into coloring books, you can do it then. If you're into journaling, knitting, I'd imagine. I'm not into like yarn crafts, not yet. So I'm pretty sure you could do it then. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different crafts. Diamond painting, that's a good one. I read so much more when I really focus on adding audiobooks to my routine. And like I said, I know that they're not for everyone. Sometimes they can be jarring. I'm not going to deny that. Like some of the narrators are just, it's kind of weird sometimes. And it's just the way that books are narrated. They want to narrate them as clear as possible, but it might not sound normal to your ears. I would say that the best place to start with this is with memoirs, because usually memoirs are narrated by the author. And the author, of course, is that person telling their story. So you're just kind of listening to someone tell their story. And It's always really nice. I always listen to memoirs because it's the best to just actually hear it from them. And also there's a few different places where you can get audiobooks. One, if you have a Spotify membership, you already get, I think, 10 or 15 hours a month. And that is usually enough for one audiobook. I always just think I have one audiobook every month from Spotify. And those are great because those are like traditionally published books. And those audiobooks, if you buy them, are pretty expensive, honestly. The library, of course, has audiobooks. If you download the Libby or the Hoopla app, they will have audiobooks for you. Another great place to find audiobooks. And then here's a tip, I think, for both new readers and already current readers, is to listen to an audiobook while you're reading with your eyes. I think I've heard some people in the book community call it like immersive reading. I just kind of use it for like, I don't know, it helps me pay attention. It really helps me pay attention. So if you are having to read a book for school or something and you're really not liking it, if you listen to the audiobook at the same time, it's going to keep you focused, and it will definitely like help you understand the story so much more. If you're reading anything that you're just like not grasping, trust me and like listen to the audiobook at the same time. You're going to have a much better time understanding what's going on. I think number 5 is a good goal for current readers and also people starting, but maybe honestly more so for current readers. And that is to set your goals low. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect at this, okay? I think I've only hit my goal like twice in the past few years. I do always end up setting it high. I'm really trying not to this year. I set it a bit lower this year. But yeah, set your goals low. You don't want to stress yourself out. Reading is meant to be fun. And I know that we in the book community do count the books that we read. We have these reading wrap-ups where, we're reading a certain amount every month and we're trying to hit the big number at the end of the year. Try your best to not make it into a game or like a competition with yourself or other people. Definitely don't make it a competition with other people. But yeah, just set your goals low, just so you don't stress yourself out. I think the main goal that anyone should set for their like reading is just to enjoy the books that they are reading. And you're not going to do that if you're stressed out about finishing it really quickly so you can move on to the next one, so you can, hit 100 books by the end of the year or whatever. I think that this is honestly a good tip for probably most anything, like set realistic goals. It's a heavy hitter for sure. I think that's one you probably see for lots of different topics, but it definitely applies here too. You set what is realistic to you. It doesn't matter what other people are doing. It doesn't matter. Okay. Cause again, reading is such a personal experience. It doesn't matter what other people are doing. Don't think about it and just set your goal, what you think you can realistically achieve. Honestly, set it a little bit lower than what you think you could realistically achieve. Well, congratulations. You are currently participating in tip number 6, which is to consume book content. So good job. I think it's just an important part of like being a reader nowadays. Of course, you don't need to consume any content to read any books. You can definitely be your own influencer and, just kind of be your own book creator. But it is really motivating to see other people read the books that they enjoy and talk about the books that they enjoy. And those people are making that content because they want to share that with you. They want other people to read books. They appreciate it when you do, but also, I guess you could say it does some of the heavy lifting for you so you can spend more time actually reading the book than trying to find it for yourself. This tip definitely goes hand in hand with the other one of like interacting with people that love books, just because there is that like sense of community. I mean, it's called the book community for a reason. I promise you there is a book space on every single social media platform. The book community is huge online and there's a place for everyone. There's content for everyone. Yeah, I think it's just a really great thing. It really does just go hand in hand with the other one. It's really motivating to see other people talk about the books that they love. My last tip, we are finally at tip number 7. I mean, I think this probably went pretty quick, but we're at tip number 7 now. And I heard this one from a fellow book creator a few months ago and I thought it was so genius. So, yeah, kudos to them. But that was to actually make book content. Because yeah, you do read more when you are making book content. Because just imagine yourself on the flip side of the consuming book content. You want to read more to recommend to people. And also, like I mentioned, there are countless of places where you can do that. You can make a booktube channel like this. You can post on TikTok. You can Post on Instagram, that's a big one. You can post on Book Sky, on Blue Sky. Like, I'm not joking when I say every corner of the internet has a book community of some kind. And all those places are waiting for your input, because since reading is so subjective, every single person brings a completely different, unique point of view to a book. You have that viewpoint as well. Pick up your phone. It doesn't have to be some full video. It can just be text. It can just be your voice. It can just be whatever. But if you're comfortable, post about the books that you're reading, and I promise someone will listen. I have made some great like friends and acquaintances on Book Talk on here, and it's just like people that comment, people that say like, oh, you should read this, or oh, I didn't like this, or just commenting on whatever. People for the most part are really, really nice. I mean, I personally haven't run into anyone that is like really mean, but I know that, you know, it is still the internet. But like, if you're just like posting about your books, people will appreciate that no matter what books you're reading. So those are all the tips that I have for you today. I'm sure you've heard some of these tips before, but I did try to kind of put my own twist on them. And I hope they were helpful. I really, really do. I love helping other people become readers, because like I said, I think I'm an authority on this subject. I love when people ask me how they can read more and I can give them a tip that actually helps them out. It's just amazing. And I just really hope I've done that for you. And just remember, it doesn't matter how many books you read. It really does just matter if you enjoy them. So yeah, so just go into your next book thinking that, to really sit down and enjoy that book. Don't rush through it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will talk to you guys a little bit later, and happy reading. Bye.